to Sass and the Beard. I think we've changed the name a couple of times just to, it was the Beard and the Sass, and now it's Sass and the Beard. Just all of these fun things. This is our second official episode, and we have some guests. We promised guests. We have people that have showed up to come and talk with us. We have Chris Olson, who's city council member here in Russellville in Ward 2. And then we have Senator Breanne Davis. So she is your representative in District 16. Yes, so that way, now you know who to call when you have complaints or praises.
So you guys want to give your cell phone number?
We should also praise our local leaders for doing things that we appreciate. So today we're going to talk about something that I know, as someone who ran for office, was pretty important to me, and I'm pretty sure these guys have ran for local and state office, and it was very important to them as well. And that is voter turnout. I know, and this is we're gonna get right to the hardest question, okay, with voter turnout.
Aren't you glad you're here?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Chris can go first.
You all had to go and get people to vote for you.
Sure.
Now, when I ran as a Democrat, and in local politics, that's not as big a deal as it is in the state politics, or like we see in national politics as well. But from the national and even the state politics standpoint, as a Democrat, voter turnout was a major issue. How are we, especially in the state that we're in, how are we going to get people to come out and vote for us? Those kind of questions. And so you go through all of these ways to try to encourage voter registration, and what I want to know, in your point of view, is that a partisan thing, or is it a big deal all across the board? In your opinion, from local to state, how do you feel? Is it just a partisan issue, or do you guys, whatever party you are involved of, and it doesn't matter locally either, but how big a deal is it to you?
So I kind of look at Republicans and go, okay, you guys are probably just sitting back in the shade going, they're going to show up, everything's going to be fine. And the word out there going, please show up. They're begging people
what
to
can
get
we
there.
do?
Yes.
I would say that no. I think it's across everything. Because it doesn't matter how many people you call and talk to, or how many texts you send out. You go, hey, if you don't mind, go vote. Hey, would you go vote? Hey, go vote.
Yeah.
And then finally sends you one back, done.
Yeah.
And so I think that's with every, I think it's across all lines.
Cool.
Yeah. For me, I was in a special election, so I felt that same urgency as well. And I've run 3 school board races, and I had opponents for 2 of them, and that same urgency is there also, because not a lot of people are paying attention to school board races, which they should be.
Yes.
Our school budget is larger than our city and county budget combined, and it's the most local, in my opinion, government you can get. So I would say it's across the board, but the tide has turned a little bit in Arkansas over the past 5, 6, 7 years. So, when you're talking about a general election, you do know more that your conservative voters are going to turn out, just because that's how Arkansas looks right now. So I wouldn't say you can just, kick your feet up and lay back, but you sort of know your people are going to show up. But, we see a lot of primary races now in the Republican Party, and that's, where I think, I felt most of my urgency. I think that's where you feel, as a Republican, probably most of your urgency if you're living in those Republican districts. But you still have to work. Like what he was, what Chris was saying, voters are busy. We're all busy. So even if, your good friend thinks they're going to come vote for you, well, their kid had soccer practice and they did this and they had to work late. So you still have got to remind people and have those touch points so that they do get out and vote, where they don't forget just because life got busy.
Well, we see a lot of people that, even though they may know the candidate personally, or know a few people who are on the ballot, they feel intimidated because they don't know all the issues, or they're not sure what's going on, so they just don't show up because they're not sure what to do. We look at that when we talk about ballot initiatives, that, if there's too many things on the ballot, eventually people just start checking no because they're overwhelmed. And, not because they don't care or anything like that, it's just, they're just fatigued with all the options and everything that's there. And so making sure people are informed about everything that's going to be on the ballot, I think, must be huge for that too.
Well, and that kind of leads me to my second question about voter turnout. For you, what is something that you feel would help, like encourage voters to show up?
Well, so I think a bigger question is do people trust the system?
Yeah.
And I think that's a question that you got to ask. And as we get good candidates that are doing good jobs, and they start, you've got that personal interaction with them. They start to believe it, and then you see them. You know, you get them to go to the first election, and then they see it, what it does, and then they show up for the second election. But it's getting that personal touch to them.
Yes.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's motivating factors, of course, and it's hard in a non-presidential year to get people to show up. You know, when there's something on the ballot they really care about, then people are going to come.
Yes.
And so, you know, I think it's just, you know, if you're in a non-presidential year, I think a lot of that, or even the special election, you know, it's, you know, when you're going door to door talking to voters, finding out issues they care about, and, you know, communicating those things in a way that makes them want to show up, and just kind of helping them understand how them showing up to vote for something is going to change or impact that issue in some way.
And especially on the local level, where we've seen elections that come down to just a couple of votes. I mean, the seats, I mean, just really 1 or 2 votes make a total difference of who ends up in that seat.
Well, yeah, I mean, even so, like if you just take the local mayoral race, you know, there was the election, and the way our rules are set up, you know, there were 3 candidates, and the person who was going to win had to have a certain percentage of the vote, and even if they got more than everyone else, it didn't matter if they didn't get that percentage. And then when it came to the secondary vote, because they had to do another election, you didn't have as many people show up, and a certain number of constituency elected the person, whether they won or didn't win the original vote. And to me, that's when you're talking about the system. Like, I feel like in a lot of ways the system is set up to not favor the voter because we already voted for the guy we want. You know, like say John Q. voter, like, well, I already voted for this person that I wanted to win, and now I got to go back and vote again. There are a lot of different scenarios that happen that way. It happened several years ago in a city council race. It's happened, you know, all across the country, you know, in those specific situations. And I feel that very much like the system. Do we trust the system that we live in? And I think it has to do with the candidate, like who's running, what are they saying that they're going to fight for, have they fought for those things in the past, and have they shown that they're true in what they're saying. And I really respect somebody that goes in and they don't make a ton of promises, but they say like I'll have your interests, and they do that, you know. And I feel that as someone who hopefully will be able to run for office again, like that's my goal is, and I want to say this every time we do this, hopefully, like, government exists to do the most amount of good for the most amount of people, in my opinion. And that's the kind of candidate like I want to vote for, you know, and that would encourage me. And I think it does start with the candidates. I think there are things that we can do to make things easier for people. Like, we need to decide that we're going to do only paper or only like digital. Like, let's figure out what we're going to do, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, a lot of that stuff, I don't know how we engage people in that stuff, because it's such a like policy wonky kind of thing that people, it's so hard to get people to care about that.
Yeah, this topic, I mean, I'm pretty sure people have snoozed out by now.
Totally,
like,
yeah. So, what about, you know, I mean, for you guys, like, what would you say as far as citizens here locally? Like, what could they do to help get more people to vote? Any ideas on that? Because we didn't tell you we were going to ask that, so we're just free on you.
Yeah, no.
You've been through a lot more elections.
I
know.
My secret plan. No, I mean, I think that it is just having, you know, everything in life is about relationships. In business and politics and everything we do, it's about relationships and communication. And so, for me, you know, I felt like we had a lot of younger people with young families and kids that were on board with our campaign, but that's just sort of the phase of life we're in. And so, I mean, we had people across the board helping, but we were able to engage different people that maybe had not been engaged before, but there was a personal connection there. And so, they were using, I call it a sphere of influence, right? Like my sphere of influence, then all of my friends have their own spheres of influence. And so they're able to get their friends, to care about something and come out and vote. And so,
which is so true. I mean, I had people during your campaign texting, like an organization I'm a member of had a group text. You get text going, hey, make sure you go and vote for Breanne just because they're connected to you, you know? And I mean, but that really does, that connection from a peer, from somebody that you know organically outside of the campaign is such a huge influencer. I think that's really great.
Yeah.
What do you think, Grace?
It's a huge responsibility as a voter too. So, you were saying earlier that, you get intimidated not knowing this stuff, but, we're engulfed in it. So it's really easy for us to pick something to death or know everything about it or whatever, or we think we know everything about it. But there's people out there that they're not in that sphere of influence. I mean, they just don't know who any of the names are or anything like that. So I've told several people, educate yourself, and if you don't educate yourself, then if you don't know the answer, you don't know how to vote yes or no, you just hit the X button or whatever on next.
Or leave it blank.
Leave it blank, whatever. But go vote on the stuff you do know about, and get people, that way, because then that gets them interested, because if their person wins, they're personally involved. They watched the election that night. They, almost comes into a competition and all that stuff, which is really good, and people learn off of that stuff. So so to answer your question, what's the great myth of getting more than 15%? I don't know what it is. Show up. I have no idea.
Well, we thought you were going to solve this for us.
Well, but I think both of you make very good points when it comes to making sure the voters are informed and having multiple areas where they can receive the information. And there are ways that we can do that, whether it's by your personal campaign or the different parties can provide those kind of information. I would love to see the county, election commission have, maybe updates on issues or things like those are kind of things that we could do, like with Facebook and other forms of digital communication now. Like the sky's the limit with information. And then the personal connection, if you have a personal connection to an issue, as a person who's in sales and has been in politics, like all anybody can do to you is say no. And so just ask the question. Like, don't be afraid to say, hey, have you thought about X issue, or have you thought about so-and-so candidate? Because if they don't want to talk about it, they'll just leave. But most people don't get as much one-on-one communication anymore. Like, they probably would love to have a conversation.
Right. My kids haven't talked to like a real human in like 3 days. All right, so I think last thing to wrap this up, if anybody's actually made it this far in on voting, they obviously care a lot about voting, which is wonderful. So if somebody's watching this and they're thinking that they might want to run for office, or they may want to get more involved in politics, what's your message to them?
Well, for me, like the analogy I use to explain politics and sort of like my learning experience throughout this. I mean, I've been held in elected positions since I was 26. And so I compare it a lot to Oz, like the man behind the curtain, right? Because like every stage in life, I think that there's, some like master, powerful brain behind the curtains that is doing this, great, really intelligent thing that, that I have to be a certain amount of qualified to be able to do. And what I've just learned at every turn is that, at the end of the day, it's just humans. And they're just trying to do the best job they can, and of course politicians get a bad rap, and that's because you see crappy headlines, you see bad things that some of them choose to do, but the majority of people are just people trying to raise their family, live in their community, and do something that they think is right. So, I just feel like along the way, it's intimidating, it can be scary, you can think, well, I'm not qualified enough, or I don't know enough, but the truth is, you do. And it's just like in The Wizard of Oz, when they come up and there's that big powerful voice and the little, Toto runs up and pulls the curtain back, and it's just a man in a microphone. There's no great secret. There's no great formula of the perfect mix that makes you qualify. It's just you being willing to get out there and maybe have the door slammed in your face, maybe have somebody, you know, use choice words to you. But at the end of the day, like, the pros outweigh the cons on it. And it's just being a human willing to serve.
Yeah.
Don't, if you think you're not educated enough to run, you're just like everyone else.
Right.
We all started somewhere.
Yes.
But if you love it and care enough about it to keep going, you learn about it and you research it and you develop an opinion and keep moving forward like that. And I can assure you that your opinion doesn't line up with everyone else's, and they're going to tell you about it. But you know what? That's part of it. But if you're thinking about running, think about what you're going to say to somebody too, because that could be you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the big life cycle lesson that I love. Everybody says they want to be in office, but how are they going to handle it when somebody tells them how wrong they are?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But no, it's great, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I've loved the last, I've been in politics all of 7 months plus a campaign. So, but I've loved every second of it, and it's been fun. And
You haven't like decided you're never running again
No.
yet, so I mean that's a good
no,
spot.
that's right. I really do enjoy it, and I wish that I had the ability to spend a lot more time on it than I do. But my wife gets sick of me doing all the research and all that stuff already. So I tried.
I've been there.
Yeah,
No, it's
work life,
yeah.
family
Uh-huh.
life, and then. but no, I've loved every second of it. So.
Awesome.
Well, I have a tremendous level of respect for both of you. Like you as a business owner and stepping out and running for office, like that was a major concern for me in local and state politics. Is this going to have an effect on that? But you realize that, like most people, they just want to talk to you about whatever drainage issue or thing that they got going on. And for you, especially Breanne, because I know, like, as all the things that are in your, whether it's being a mom, being a wife, being, senator, being younger, like all of these things that could have been a potential battle for you. And it's very inspiring. And as somebody who has a daughter and would, whatever she wants, like you're someone that I would want her to look up to, to say, she could do it, so can you, and so I really appreciate both of you. And I know we very much appreciate you guys. Not that it's all that much of a maybe there's 300 people or 3 million people that are going to watch this, but you guys, took a step to come and be here and talk to us about this issue that is, in my opinion, probably the most important issue when it comes to electing people to serve and to make decisions for us as citizens, and yet it's
Something that a lot of people just don't really
Yeah.
put thought into. Say like the average voter thinks about politics about 5 minutes a week.
yeah.
And I think about it about 5 hours a day, so
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I can't imagine that, and which is part of why I think we have a hard time sometimes getting that message out, because we're trying to relay it to people who think like us. So anyways, thank you both so much for joining us and talking about this and letting us all kind of nerd out on voting.
Yes.
And anything else.
Thanks to Councilman Chris Olson and Senator Breanne Davis. Make sure and follow. They have pages on social media that you can get on and like and communicate with them. Again, follow us. We'll have our videos on YouTube and Facebook. So thank you again. This is the second official episode of Sass in the Beard. You guys have a great day.